Well, excited to be here, and Courtney mentioned this a little bit, that kind of the goal today is extending our brand, right? And she mentioned I have up here one of the comments the emotional journey. And Courtney led to this a little bit, in the first discussion is, what is the silent salesperson? And so something that's really important to any brand as you want to take traction into becoming something bigger than just a builder. I know for me, being in the Scottsdale market, it is a good market, but there's a lot more to just being a contractor, right? There's a lot of opportunities outside the building. And so there was a term I heard 10 years ago, and it was the term of silent salesperson. Has anyone heard that term? Yeah. Keep in mind that this is an open forum. I know we have a few in this room, but if you have any questions, I can run at any time. But essentially, what a silent salesperson is somebody that sells your product that's not on your payroll. And so if you look at companies that are really successful, those are the ones that build a community, they build advocates inside and outside the industry to speak about their brand. And you're not paying them, they're not on their payroll. And so to kind of hit that tipping point or get your company to the next level to become a brand is when you have those advocates, that community that's building a brand. So with that said, something that was really important for me at the very beginning. Now keep in mind, fortunately now people look at AOT and social media can be a little bit misleading, right? They look at AOT saying, you guys are doing these amazing projects, which fortunately we are. And I always tell people, it's, overnight success, 25 years in the making. Derek here, I worked with him and his dad, 15 years ago before I started AOT. And so there's these steps that go along the way as you build a new company. And something that I was always passionate about from the early beginning was leveraging a design community. I think many times as builders, at least in the builders that I've dealt with over the years, a lot of them will say have maybe a distaste or a bad experience with interior designers or maybe some architects. And because of that, there's been this contentious relationship with the design community. And I've always looked at this, and something I'll speak about a lot is pain points, right? For you to understand to become a brand, what are the pain points for our customers? What are the pain points for those associates and colleagues we're working with, whether they're interior designers or architects? So back in April, I was invited to speak at Design Camp. So Design Camp is where they bring in about 150 interior designers around the country. So I came up to Design Camp, I'm meeting with 150 designers. I'm on stage, and the whole point of my presentation at the time was how do you build this relationship between design and construction? Because many of these designers go back home and in their markets they're fighting with the builder. The builder doesn't listen to them. And we can be a little bit open here. I know in the construction world, right? Most contractors, not all, but generally, many of them, a lot of them are male, right? And then in design community, a lot of them are female, so you kind of have this contrast on that side. And so being at Design Camp, I sit here as a builder, and I'm thinking how foolish it is for some of the builders I know. Why are you not tapping into the design community? Reason being, here's a bathroom that we finished a couple of years ago. Now this project specifically, the client actually found us through Instagram. This is a $5 million build that we completed in Scottsdale. And this client reached out from Instagram, just sent me a message on Instagram saying, Brett, I've been following you. And I'll get to this part of the journey later. But we've been following you and want you to build our house. And then we, of course, for me, it's an operating procedure, right? SOP is that we're going to have an interior designer. So I set them up with an interior designer who designs this amazing bathroom. And now selfishly, as a builder, I have this post that's gone viral every 4 months when I decide to post it because people love this shower and they love this bathroom. And as you look about branding and building past your area now, just being open, I build in Scottsdale. I'm here in Dallas. I'm not competing with any of you guys in the construction industry. I'm no desire to. Right? There's no way for me in Phoenix, but it is important for me to build my brand way past Scottsdale, way past Phoenix. Because ideally, when I went to Design Camp, which was in Austin this year, is building relationships with 150 different designers. And then saying, hey, there's a builder in Scottsdale that's pro-designer that won't do a job without an interior designer. That's not, right? That's someone I want to associate my brand with. How can I go back and find other builders like Brad or like David in my market? And truth be told, in my market, Dallas is probably similar. I have a lot of seasonal clients that come from the Midwest, and come from New York, come from the Northwest. Why? Because no one wants to visit Arizona right now, it's too hot, but in the winter, it's a really nice place to be. And so the whole point of that aspect of interior design is that if I want to be published, and fortunately we've been published, as you mentioned in our bio there, most of these publications won't publish you if you don't have a designer or an architect or a landscape designer if the house is not finished. So for me, I can align my brain to when I first started A&T, I had the hardest time being really young, 11 years ago, getting signature projects. I had a really hard time not just doing a powder bath or a deck, and how do I get to do a custom home such as the one you see here? And so I reach out to designers and architects and say, hey, I'm Brad, this is my company, and they never return one phone call, right, as they've done. And so social media was a way that I'll get into later where I can bridge that gap and start building a core relationship with the design community. To the point where some of these architects and designers that would never respond to me when I called them would see me post on LinkedIn all the time and call me and say, hey, I'm going to help them. Like, what are you doing on social media? How can you help our social media marketing strategy? Let's find a project together and collaborate. And I want to sidetrack just on one part of the customer advocate side. So, before you mentioned that, I've had my podcast for about 5 years now. And the whole point when I started my podcast was, specifically to the design, architecture, and building community, but I have a lot of guests that are not related to building, but they're entrepreneurs, they're successful business people, professional athletes. 4 years ago, I had Jeremy Andrews, who's the CEO of Traeger. So Jeremy comes on, and I won't give his whole backstory, but quickly, he did Harvard MBA, right? He does MBA at Harvard. And he did a lot of venture capitalists and investment banking. He did some real estate, commercial real estate in San Francisco. And he ended up getting opportunity with Skull Candy. Now keep in mind back then, when he was with Skull Candy, this is like a headphone brand. This is before Beats by Dre and some other headphones. This is starting to become popular. So he built Skull Candy to be really big. And then Skull Candy sold. And he found himself young, retired. What's he going to do on this next chapter? So his best friend goes to Stan Stocks. Funnily enough, he was on the podcast because I've known both of them. And so he goes to build Stan Stocks, one that's in fashion right now, Stan Stocks. If not, your kids do for sure. So Jeremy has this come across his desk to Mike Traeger. Traeger's a smoker. Now let's be honest, we're in Dallas. It's probably really offensive to everyone in this room, like anyone who's buying a Traeger. For me in California and Arizona, this is like a cheat sheet. This is how I smoke. I don't know how to smoke the real way like in Texas. And he looks at this and he's like, I don't know about this barbecue brand because it's a commodity. How many people care about, barbecues? Is there potential in this company? And as he started looking into it, he decided to move forward and purchase the company. They were based in Oregon and they had this huge fracture internally. And if you go back and listen to the podcast, he kind of goes in depth. But essentially, they had a freight and division that managed shipping and trucking and logistics. And then he had the sales side. And there was a ton of contention. He shows up one morning and there was arson because of just, the fight between the two heads of the departments. And one of the employees was so upset they started burning down the company. And so he goes into the bathroom and he's like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here trying to sell smokers and barbecue grills? And so he decides, okay, I'm going to revamp and I'm kind of going to look at, I'm going to get to this part of the conversation, but there are two things that really changed the trajectory of Traeger. Number one was he had to understand his business, which I'll talk about in a minute. And as a contractor, you have to understand your business. If you want to be successful, you have to understand every touch point that customer has with your brand. You have to understand every touch point they have in the building process. And the minute you get that first phone call saying, hey, Brad, I don't want you to build my house. Okay. So when they move in and the house is what we call toothbrush ready, right? That the furniture's down and the landscapes are complete. What does that journey look like? And so if you understand your business to know all these different touch points where the customer's going to be frustrated and upset, then you're going to have a lot of success because you can identify those low points in the process. And when that customer's going to be frustrated. Now keep in mind, buying a Traeger, the touch points are pretty small. You're building a custom home, In my case, I have some homes that are 2 years in design, 3 years in build. So I mean, I'm dealing with a client that 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We just finished our home last month. It was 5 years. And so there's a lot of touch points, right? There were some I didn't even know were touch points and then I figured them out, halfway through the build. So that's number one, is understanding your business. So she spent time figuring out the business first, employees and for the customer. And the second part was the marketing aspect of it. And fast forward, he ends up moving the company from Oregon to Salt Lake, they go to Park City, and Traeger starts to become pretty successful. So he starts to he figures out, how it's operating internally, kind of fixes all that, figures out logistics, takes it in-house, and now he's not smooth sailing, but he's on the right path. And sure enough, what happens, right? Competition comes into the market. So all these different smokers and grills come in, and then now COVID hits, and the pandemic hits, and now he's dealing with something a lot of us deal with. Pricing is going through the roof. And all of us have felt that in 2020. So pricing's changing, and he's thinking, Jeremy 1.0 would have sat here and said, I'm going to go back, I'm going to cut costs, I'm going to cut overhead, I'm going to find these suppliers, I'm going to build it cheaper. And I think a lot of us can relate to that as a builder, right? And he said, Jeremy 2.0 actually changed my whole theory. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep my brand elevated to the product and quality of this, but I'm going to go to the community aspect. I'm going to go to the side of the salesperson. And so what he did was, anyone that's a sports fan knows Dan Patrick Show. I listen to Dan Patrick Show. He's a sports podcaster, and he has Lead Fridays. And perfect timing, where sometimes we make our own timing love. So Jeremy just COVID hits while restaurants open and not open. So what does he do? He starts creating recipes for this community. He starts sharing recipes, and he starts creating his own seasonings, right? And he goes on Dan Patrick Show. They do Lead Friday, and they show making good coffee and pizzas and different things on the smoker. And so people that are now in-house and they don't have the exposure to the community, they're building it online, they're building it on social media. They're showing on their social media page all these different influencers, and even people that weren't influencers, even small, family, a husband and wife that have 50 followers, and most of them sharing their stuff. And so you're building this massive community. And what happened was, he mentioned that that's what took off, because he started focusing on marketing as opposed to just the bottom line. So one thing I live by is saving marriages one house at a time. Right? That's the tagline I like to use. Truth be told, I actually had them to build this, and Brad, you probably should have put this on your website though, because you don't want to assume that like getting divorced from the build process. So I actually use this as a sales page, but I try not to put it like all over my marketing strategy. But the whole point of this is, as a builder, you have to understand, as I mentioned, just like Traeger did, what are those pain points for the customer? What are these touch points? Now, Brian Harris, who I'm showing up here, and this goes back to the emotional journey that you're trying to create as a builder. Because if you can create an emotional journey, you're going to have a permanent list of people that want to hire you to build their home. So Brian, I built his house. He gave the tagline, saving marriages one house at a time. I actually think I believe on my website when he's saying that. But here's why I love Brian. Here's why we get along on a lot of ways. And this goes back to maybe before I talk about Brian. You have to understand your ideal client. I've learned over the years that part of understanding my business is knowing who I want to work for. And I can tell you, I don't like working for doctors. There's any doctors in this room, sorry. Lawyers, I'll work for some lawyers, but really, where I came into it, and I'll take it a step further. There's a lot of clients that maybe have a boutique company that are more successful. They probably more a lot of hats in their company. Probably not my ideal client either, because the way my company's set up. You have to understand how your company is. My company has 31 employees. And I'm not on job site every day. I'm here in Dallas this day, my company's back at home, knocking out some projects. My ideal client is an entrepreneur that understands business. They understand that they have teams. And a lot of my clients understand that they have employees that are probably more talented than they are when it comes to the day-to-day. They know how to hire good people. They know how to empower them. And they know how to delegate. And then they have systems in place, right? And in the construction community, how many of us builders have systems and organization? How many of us can leave a job site for a week on vacation and not have a phone because things are dialed in despite the chaos of building? And so my clientele that I'm selling to are the ones that value that. There's a cost to that. There's a cost to have a team dedicated to your build and still have the overhead and the other components. But they see the value in that because they want that same marriages one house at a time. They want that control. So with Brian, what he does, this is the emotional side that we have to tap into builders. So Brian is a cosmetic dentist, and he started in the dental trades. He, cleanings, crowns, root canals, like all the normal stuff. Deal with insurance companies, not going to make a lot of money doing that. And he'd be fine, but he could never get to the next level. And so he decides, I'm going to get into veneers, veneers for, and what he saw was immediately, he'd see people that self-consciously, whether they're at the wedding or their whole life, didn't like to smile because they're self-conscious about their smile. So he started, just like Trigger did, he started building a community. And he started working with influencers, not by choice, it's just happenstance. He would post, a normal person on their social media, things big up as on social media, and then all of a sudden, JJ Watt comes in, and Odell Beckham comes in. And I have one up here with Shay McGee, because now we're doing the second house with Studio McGee, Shay McGee from Netflix, who's something may or may not know. That's the cross-branding we'll talk about too, how this kind of all comes together. But with Brian's success, what he did, which I think is extremely intelligent from him, is you can see the bottom left is his lobby where it says building confidence, in the bottom left right there. And what he would do is he would show in his Instagram, whether it's on his page or in his Instagram stories, he would show this person who was overly self-conscious about how they built. And then he would show him buying a plane ticket as they're flying to see him in Phoenix. And then he'd show him sitting in the lobby under the building confidence sign. And he would show up as he does the mock-up, because he does this like dental drive where he shows the mock-up for the veneers, just like we do a rendering. And then he shows 3 months later of them at the wedding with this like radiant smile and this confidence. And you can just see like the joy that this person has in this 3-month journey of going from someone that had bothered them their entire life to now understanding so confident. And so you take that, and then everyone else is like, well, I want that. And then as they post and share, then other people are like, I want that. And then before you know it, he's booked out, years in advance to where he's expanded, and now he's taken that and he's become a brand where Harris Dental's brand. He trains other cosmetic dentists around the country to create his own software. So he's turned this whole thing from just this little niche into a big thing because of how he loves social media. So again, that customer journey, as I mentioned, you have to understand what that customer journey looks like. So for a builder, and I'm going to fast forward real quick. Now, keep in mind, for the construction I'm doing, I'll give the client the emotional roller coaster. I'm here with them, I give them this emotional roller coaster. And the reason being is because this came up a couple of years ago. I was giving the client going through the sales process, getting most of our business development. And so I'm sitting across the client side with Brad. We follow you on social media and we like your personality and you're giving us this good sales speech, right? All the things we want to hear. But when am I going to hate you throughout the build? When am I not going to like you? I'm like, well, that's fair. And so I'm just kind of winging it like, well, I know that this is always a pain point. This is kind of a low spot. And so we created this emotional roller coaster to give our clients, right? The reason being is that when I did my first hillside build, anyone that's worked on a hillside in Scottsdale, I had quite a few. When you do a hillside, and I've done a few complicated ones as of late, from the time that I break ground, so I can actually put a slab, so I don't worry about doing 12 months. I run right now to be 18 months, maybe a year and a half, building up this mountain with all the different tiers and footings and retaining walls as we sequence this build. Well, something I didn't know when I did my first hillside is that, I should have known, but I didn't know how to communicate this properly, is that when I'm pouring my first lift, on the bottom tier where it's a 12-foot retaining wall, I'm doing 4-foot sections. Well, the problem is when you do 4 feet in a solid ground, I have to wait for that to cure, right? It has to be cured, and then I have to water it, and I have to backfill it, and then I can go back and do the next, lift, and then so forth. And so there's weeks that no one's on site. I mean, over that year and a half, there's months of that time frame that no one's on site. And it's not that we're not efficient or we have not, it's just that's how the construction process goes. I have to build the hillside, before I can get going further. And the problem is that customers don't understand anything about what we do day to day. They just don't. And we have to educate them. So the better expectations we set, the better we know a business, the better map that we have, the better emotional roller coaster we can target those local ones based on experiences, a lot smoother the process will be. So going through adequate build time, something that took me a long time to learn on people pleasing by nature in a lot of ways. And so I'm to be like, hey Brad, I want to move in, we're breaking ground in February. I want to make sure that I'm in our house for Thanksgiving because we want to get married in December in our house. And this is like Jeremy. Brad 1.0 would have been like, I want to make you happy. We're going to figure it out. And they're going to do it. And then come November, you're going to hate me. It's not done. This isn't done. We're trying to have a wedding. Like you're trying to plan a wedding, or we're trying to rush this, moving furniture, and then it's not going to work. So Brad 2.0 sits and listens to the customer and says, I'm ready to get something today. So there's no chance we're going to be done in November, but I will be done in February, March, so go find anybody else where, make sure you're not stressed about it, and then we'll see you next March when you come back from the house. And so a lot of this comes down to us, our ability to say no. Another big mistake I've made over the years is so many of us get the contract, we get the deposit, and we're like, okay, let's just start tomorrow. And why? Why don't we just tell them? And I'm very happy now. Yeah, the time right now. That's Brad. I want to start in January. And this is a year of design. We have to go through HOA and all these submittals and things. And I told him, I said, look, I'm not getting the design book until December. I need 8 weeks to price it. And then we have to sit down and go through the budget because I'm going to give you a high and a low, and I'm going to go through all the reads on that. But we have to get to the agreement on price, even though we have a lot of pricing budgeting we're doing. And then I need 8 weeks to mobilize. So we'll start in April. But I want to start in January. We'll start in April. And going back to the cosmetic dentist, Brian, and this is something I'm going to be handling really any doctor or surgeon you go to. You may want this surgeon, and they're backed up, they have backlog. And they'll tell you, you can come in, 6 months from now, and make your money anyway because you want that service from the specialist. And so we have to create a demand, not that we're pushing people off, but when they do come into the farm, we start construction, we understand what the roadmap looks like. We're the expert. We got it. And too many times we're trying to get money in the bank account or deposits or feel like, hey, we look back, go in instead of saying, oh, this is our process and here's all different for it. So again, understand all the touch points that clients have. The ideal client I mentioned, who my ideal client is, I'm going to look for that. Age demographic, maybe not so much wealth as opposed to, how do they structure their life? How do they communicate? I'm really big on how do they communicate spouse to spouse. I think a lot can be seen that. Businesses that clearly outline, identify, and understand the customer journey, although it can become extremely successful. Now, this kind of goes back to understanding your business and these touch points, that emotional journey. So I mentioned Brian, then he's showing how someone's confident, how it changes and how happy they are. Now, back when I started AFT, so this is 2013 when I started, and around 2015, we were doing some remodels and projects. This is the ICF house we did up on the hillside. Kind of a complicated build, it was a lot of fun, but the reason I bring it up is that I had a client that at this time I'm in the field, so it's not like today when I'm not in the field. So I'm in the field, I do the project, I finish, the client was retired, he was a former builder, and the house is done, and he's like, right, can we go to lunch? I'm not sure, let's go to lunch. And he's like, I want to kind of recap this whole experience working with you in AFT. So we go to lunch, and at lunch, he says, Brad, the communication was great, the quality was great, really happy with the build, and this was a remodel, so it wasn't this house specifically, but he says, I just want to say one thing we're really disappointed on. And I'm like, okay, but what's that? And he's like, the site just wasn't clean. We're living in our house throughout the remodel, which, time out for a second, going back to knowing the build, I do remodels now, and the client doesn't live in the house. So part of my SOP, my operating procedure, right, that's just line in the sand. If I'm doing a remodel and having open surgery, you're not going to sit here and watch. I don't need you coming in the road with your coffee at 8 a.m. saying, why is my phone not here? Because he's coming at 8:05. So it's setting expectations. But going back to the remodel, this time I didn't understand my business, so I'm letting the client live in the house and looking there as he's living there. And he said, the painters were cleaning and they left paint in the box, and then there's like sawdust in the driveway from the trim guys. And he's like, Brad, honestly, he's like, I think there's a lot of potential you have, but you need to keep your sights clean. And I'm like, okay, no. I'm going to take an audit from my clients, take that feedback, I'm going to make a change there. Now, rewind, okay, this is 2014, so when I was in college, I grew up in the trade. So I grew up as an electrician in San Diego. My dad and I was an electrician, so I know what it's like being in the field. When I was in college studying construction management, at BYU, I did installation. And in the summers, I would leave Utah, go back to San Diego and work on the military bases, doing like fiber optics and all that. I remember specifically, it was like my sophomore year, so this is early 2000s. I'm back in San Diego, and we're doing a school. And school wasn't out for the summer in California because this is May. And so we were working from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. We're working the night shift. So the first day on the job, we show up to this high school. It's 9 p.m. The superintendent for the contractors there pulls me aside. And I'm kind of with our team that's going to go through the fire alarm install that night. And at this time, this is a pre-cell phone, so like we don't have digital like iPhones. So he has a digital camera, which is state of the art at the time. That's how back this goes. So he has a digital camera. He says, Brad, I'm going to follow you guys around all night as you're working. And if I find one piece of scrap and wire as you're trimming out, or even any material, like I'm finding you $50. And your boss and your company's going to know about it. And if that's the second time, it's $100 and so forth. And you kind of want to do this whole thing. And keep in mind, that's I worked for probably 20 different general contractors, but on this guy's job, every time I went, I made sure that everything was done properly. And I can tell you that experience just from an installer, I actually appreciated that. Because it was very clear on the expectation. The job site was always clean. I can move around. Fast forward, I'm going back in the winter working doing installation. And then I go to a house where the superintendent doesn't know his job, so I drywall the labor before they get slated. So now I'm trying to like install insulation, move ladders around, and you have massive stacks of drywall in against walls. I can't get insulation back there. How am I going to move 30 sheets of drywall? Right? So it's super inefficient. And so what I've learned is that, going back to that, because a lot of the feedback I get is, like, Brad, we appreciate we want to keep job sites clean, but it's impossible. Our trades don't care. They're too busy. Why though? Why? If you put in a contract, if you communicate, if you talk to them, if you sell them on the vision of why you're doing this, they'll buy it. And I know that from the start. And so I took this to note, and we started keeping our job sites clean. And the whole point of this emotional journey, where this is really connected for me, is this is 2015-16, and I did a post. So what I did was, this was actually the job site that I had one of our laters go through. We have one of those big magnet rollers. So he takes the magnet roller all around the job site after we're done framing, and we have a 5-gallon bucket as we had coming in, right? And it was probably like this much full, probably 8 full of screws and nails and just, metal that he had rolled up and picked up. So I do this video, I put it on LinkedIn, and I put it on Instagram. And this is pre designer architect one calling back, okay? So this thing goes like bonkers. Like, I know some of us, with algorithms, you make that post to get, a ton of likes, but this one had like thousands of comments. And every single comment was pretty much the same thing. And every single person that has this one viral, they said, if you care as a builder about these little details, about site cleanliness, and you care about it. If you care about that, and you care about the quality, you care about the experience. We moved into our home, and our kids stepped on a nail and ended up with the yard, because we built it to be cared about. And what I realized is that's the pain point, because how many of us have been job sites, and a lot of them say, we open up the wall and there's some water bottles in there. There's like, food and salsa stayed in the concrete floor, whatever it is. And so why not as a builder have a bunch of them, right? Where your trades can reap their money for well, they can have it in the shade. It's 115 amperes. Why not create a place where they can eat and have some shade? And keep the site clean and organized, so when they come up, they can actually be efficient. They can show up with ladders and lifts and do what they need to do. Some of my have 30-foot ceilings, and if you can move around the grid, it makes it a lot easier to be efficient. And so what I found is that emotional pain is stuck with the public. And people that walk our jobs now or see us on social media would say, well, AT has these really good job stats. And I can tell you that because of that emotional pain point, there are clientele that specifically reach out to us and build their wall because of that psychology. So going back to this, it's really important to understand, what is the pain point of the customer? Cost. I'm open book cost plus, so I have to really vet and understand what it takes to cost the project. And am I accurate when I give you a price now to when you move in 2 years from now, how close am I to that original number? So site cleanliness, communication, the quality, the organization. How am I organized? Who do they speak to? Do they have to, when they call, do they feel like I have to be the one answering, or do they speak to the super? So where's the protocol for everyone involved in the build process and the build process? From subcontractors to suppliers to clients. What's the value proposition that we're bringing in? The problem is if most of us are fighting on price, it's a problem. Ideally, we build a brand or a company where we're selling the value, not the price. When you're selling the value, then you're going to have that yield client and that yield product. So you want to work it. And then the innovation. So how are we innovating? How are we showcasing building science or sustainability or net zero or carbon footprint? All these VOCs. And we do have clients that are very sensitive to that. I mean, the pandemic became eye-opening, right? People are very concerned about that and their health. And then the environment, right? Which is kind of all in play here. And so, again, all of us have some experience, little experience with some of the different social media avenues. But the main reason I bring it up, social media, is because it's been such a pivotal aspect for our company. And I was just on a podcast as a guest this week, and the topic came up. Truth be told, and I've been pretty open about this in my podcast. Fortunately for me, I've been in business 11 years now. I started 2013 my company. I graduated from college 20 years ago, so and I grew up in the trades. But as a business owner, I didn't realize how hard it is to run a construction company. And so fast forward 5 years in the business, I was at a turning point for me where I'm like, how do people make money in construction? Like, I don't think I can make money doing this. I think I need to find a different career. And I remember sitting there, and I was torn because I did think, okay, well, maybe I need to go into like commercial real estate or development. Maybe I need to go back with my MBA, go back to grad school. I need to figure something out. And I still have AT, and we're pretty small at the time. We're like 5, 6 employees. And the struggle I had is that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I don't know how to make money as a builder, but at the same time, I can see this tidal wave coming. And the reason I bring that up is because this is right after the book goes viral with Site Cleanliness. I started making waves with some of the interior designers and architects. And so because of social media, I can see this, call it these silent salespeople that were speaking about AFT. And when you say make it, you make it. Keep in mind, this is 5 years in. I think I just finished like one custom home at the time and a ton of remodels. But that's on paper, but based on what was portrayed as people are thinking AFTs like this massive corporation. But at the core of it, I was producing thought leadership, I was producing site cleanliness, I was producing our process. Like, I was committed to that stuff. And I remember sitting there with my financial advisor, it was kind of in this tipping point time. And he's looking at this and he says, Brad, I don't think you're going to stay in business, He's like, your lifeline's not very long. Like, the numbers don't look great. I'm looking at this, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, that's true. But I can see what's happening from this community that we're building nationally, not just locally, but nationally, but like at a rate. And sure enough, thankfully, I stayed the course. So going back to the social media and how this can build your business is that a couple of things kind of happened around this time. Number one, Brian Harris, who I mentioned, wanted to build with us. That's great. So Brian built with us. And these are these small points. There are these big designers back east that knew about AFT and had done a collaboration with Cambridge. I didn't know what Cambridge was. And so these designers were like, hey, you need to bring out this builder from Arizona, and he needs to come to Minneapolis. So I go to Minneapolis to see Cambridge for the first time. I do the tour, and I'm just about to order countertops from Brian Harris's house, who gives me the tagline, save America's one house at a time, right? And so I'm about to order countertops, and Cambridge is like, they're going to be Caesar stone just being open. So And we ended up changing them all to Cambria. Well, then Cambria says, being at this walk, I ended up meeting the VP of marketing at Cambria. So I'm very big on touch points on people, on relationships. Like anyone that knows me knows I'm huge on that. Like, truth be told, when I go to like the builder show, like here, you go to the builder show, I mean, this is probably different when you go to Vegas. I always want to know who's running the social media. Like, go to Builder Trend, go to Polo. I want to find out who's behind the scenes that I'm looking with, who's on marketing. Because there's relationships that can be built. Again, this is relationship industry, but I talk about that. And so I meet the VP of marketing at Cambria, and she says, Brad, I'm going to tell you something. When you finish this house, call me. And I know I was in New York and Manhattan for 20 years, so I know all the editors. So contact me, and I'm going to introduce you personally to each editor. You go one by one. I'm not going to sit at top 10 because they're all friends. So if you sit in the top 10, none of them will respond. You go one by one, and there's one rejection. We'll go down the list. And so I finished the House of Brian. I sent her the stuff, and Cambria hustled me nationally published. So there's that first, and then I get the next job. And then the one restaurant is like, that's the ICI that comes into play, and this is where it becomes very relevant now. Is I kind of knew that social media was happening because of friendships and relationships, and I'm reaching out to peers like, how do you run your business? How do you charge for things? And then Mindy, who's here, she's in my Builder 20. And what's awesome about the American Custom Builders Council is this is like the first Builder 20. So one of the builders, Vince Maloney, who's in Columbus, Ohio, he was part of the team that started this group. It's the very first Builder 20 ever started. And his son Gino followed me on Instagram. This is my podcast. And since they knew you get this builder here from Arizona, and so once I interview and I get part of the Builder 20, so I have a team that's helping me run my business. I just got nationally published, right? And then through social media, Instagram, I meet Matt Bryson, who's in Austin, and many of you may know him. So Matt becomes a good friend of mine. We meet up at his build shows. And funnily enough, along these times, Mark Leavitt, who's active in the industry, is interviewing builders to build his net zero homes, the national home of the year, pro builder in Scottsdale. So he's interviewing builders way more seasoned than I am. I mean, at this point, I've been in business 6 years. I haven't done net zero. I've done ICF, and I've done SIPs, and I've done some building science elements, but I've never done net zero. So when Mark's interviewing, he had criteria. He said, I want someone that has done building science. Well, I've done some. And he says, I need someone that is involved in marketing because we're trying to push the industry to net zero and do stuff that's more sustainable. And he had these other qualifications. And then unfortunately, because I've done that, Matt calls him and says, hire Brad. And so again, this social media, like, so many of us look at maybe the negative, but the positive is that you're creating advocates, right? Matt, I've never paid Matt anything. He's a good friend that honestly just did a solid and said, hey, Mark, hire me to your house. And he listened to him and he hired me. And then we could leverage that with vendors. And Kohler was part of this, right? And Cambria was part of this build. And Crestron. And Foxbox and these different brands now have their own publications that will get published. When I started the podcast, it was because I've met a lot of interesting people. And very similar like Ryan, where you're still working with unique people, what I didn't understand is that we're not interviewing certain guests and then we show that on a platform now, it's exposed to that. And that ripple effect just takes, it just goes out there as people figure out about the brand. And so, the reason I bring in social media when people are customer centric is that 67% of all customers will contact, will contact the brand through social media. Companies with social media presence grow 10% in real world competitors. Right, wrong, or different, I just was awarded a project, and this is going to be an amazing $10 million home in Phoenix. And as I was speaking to the customer, why, and everything else, he said something that really stuck out. Now, I will be fair, this can go the other way too, but in general, he said, the reason we hired you is because you are active on social media, which means there's a trust factor. And in the construction world, if I'm trusting somebody to check my build, I want to see their credibility or their exposure or they're out there because I know they're not going to rip me off because they're too public. And that's really the theory. Now, in fairness, when you do get into some of these $20 million bills, $30 million bills, which we have a couple right now, some of these customers are very private. So now you're dealing with NDAs and maybe you don't publish your stuff, they're not on social media, that's fine. And in fairness, I have one right now that's like 25 million construction contract, right, to build. And the client is very adamant that, hey Brad, I understand that boundary because of social media and I trust you, I'm hiring you, but I still don't want you to publish my stuff. So I'm very private. That's fine, whatever we'll do. But the reason I bring it up is because right around indifferent, there is a validation to the customer base, and everyone has a smartphone now. So they either have a great website, social media is great because it's a resume that's always continuing, and you can show your current market and product. Now I bring up the cross branding, and I'm going to go forward to Shay again and come back because this is another part of the social media aspect. So Shay, let's see, and DJ Humphries, who plays for the Cardinals, and Brian, who's my client on the left. He's done 11 years, right? So funny story is DJ from the Cardinals. Going back to social media, there's a player, Sam Reddick, who played, and now he's playing for the Jets, but he hired us to do his build, and he tagged me, and then all the Cardinals are like calling me, like, hey, can you do my project? And truth be told, like, we're not fit to do all of them, because they all have different project sizes and budgets, but we started working for DJ, and I had been sharing Brian's stuff, so he finds DJ unannounced. I meet with him, true story, I meet with him, and about 3 months later we have our second meeting, and he has this new smile, and his wife has a new smile. And I was like, what just happened? And he's like, oh, we went to Brian years ago, 11 years ago. I'm like, well, how did you meet him? It's not like I gave you the cell phone. He's like, oh, we found him on Instagram, we reached out, we went in and we did our videos, and like, and then he got JJ Watt to do him, and it's just kind of funny how that works out. But he found them through my Instagram page. And this is my client and my other client. And I have a client right now in building for, and again, this is how small the world is. My client right now is from Seattle and building in Phoenix. And this client in Seattle has done food admin over years of Brian. Like he's the dentist. Like he's not even a construction. That's how much we overlap our businesses because we're elevated to this clientele. Shay's doing the same thing. So now Brian's doing this next one with Shay McGee's designing it. So this cross-branding happens between all industries. And that's why it's important for us to network with people inside and outside of construction and design and architecture. The reason why, as you look at Shay or Amber Lewis, some of these designers, they really got in early with design and blogging and social media. When I say dictate your market, here's the level to what Shay's at. I think many of us, and this goes back to maybe that thought I had 5 years in business where I'm thinking, how do people make money in this industry? And the reason being is, there are a lot of reasons I didn't make money. I didn't know how to price a job. I didn't know what it cost me to finish a job. I didn't understand the build process or timeline. I didn't charge properly. I didn't have the experience or value proposition to dictate what I should have been charging. Or know how to communicate that properly. Whereas now I'm a lot more seasoned where client pushes back on something, I know where to hold it out and push back. But going back to Shay's, and now she's at a point in her career because of what she's done on social media and the brands that she's working with, and the Netflix TV series where she has minimums. So a client reaches out, and she has, most designers want to get to a level where they're charging X dollars a square foot, right, for design. She's at a level where she's saying, if you're hiring me, we need to spend X dollars a square foot to build. So we'll figure out design furniture later, but your build budget has to be here. Because I'm only going to design to what I can put to make my house look awesome as a designer. So her clients are spending here on the construction, and then you have to go over here and say, well, my minimum furniture is this, which I'm going to say there is the shape because I know what it is, but she has a minimum furniture number, and she has a finishing accessory number, and she has a minimum travel number, and she has a minimum square foot number, and then she has a minimum cost that they have to build with the builder and the architect. And so she's dictating the market. She doesn't have not enough jobs. She has too many jobs because of the reputation she's built, and so now she can dictate, and now she can focus her time on, as she's done, on brand deals. And the funny thing, what's amazing about Shay and what they built, which is very impressive to me, is that you think, I'm very familiar with I went to design campus, so I know what designers charge, most of them, and I know what the top ones get and how well they do. So she's definitely along the top, and that's only 5% of the revenue. It's 95% of the revenue is product, right? Target and all the other branches. So again, that's how social media can lead to. Now again, I have 15 minutes. Are there any questions so far? Because I've kind of just been going in this Q&A. I'll just keep going. I'll answer your questions. So I'll just keep going. Now, something that I really like, anyone that knows Kyle, somebody works with our buildings, he's been on the podcast, and he's in Illinois. And standing out for the crowd, because again, this goes back to the site cleanliness thing. People say, well, Brad, yeah, site cleanliness sounds great, but I can't get my checks to keep it clean. I can barely even show up on site. Okay, well, that's probably you problem because you haven't sold the value, right, to the seller. By them keeping it clean, or maybe you didn't start from day one, somebody friendly, keep it clean. And then you're the capital guy, and it kind of starts from the beginning. Well, a lot of feedback I get is, okay, Brad, well, this is all great, but you're posting, lazy rivers and baseball fields and like trampoline barns. And fortunately, we've done some of those projects now, but I didn't always have that, right? I mentioned early on I was doing out about per deck, and you're kind of strategizing without leadership. What I love about Kyle is he stands out from the crowd. Kyle does, if you were to go look up RR buildings, which you can at some point, he's massive on YouTube, massive on Instagram. He does barns in Illinois, right? But he's very thoughtful in the marketing strategy, how he shows the process. He shows the process to build post-farm construction. He's showing how you can do post-frame construction, like make a house, not just a barn. And he's showing the tools that he uses to expedite, to be more efficient. He's showing the grades he's working with. And he's showing drone shots, and then he's pouring for footage. He's put like a GoPro camera on. Truth be told, my kids watch slime videos like the whole time, like playing slime, right? People they want to see something that's interesting. So this is something that's doing post-frame construction, barns. There's nothing sexy about that. There's really nothing. If you compare it to a beautiful kitchen or a landscape package, it doesn't compare. But he's showcasing it in a way that it's gravitating to you. I mean, he's dominating YouTube by showing these how-to videos and these tool videos and how he creates efficiencies. So there's other ways that we can take our brand, whatever it may be, and leverage that, with whatever we're doing. So motion is the key to drive customer loyalty. You don't increase motion with delight. So again, how do you become respected? Well, you build a process, you build a system, you build an organization. Again, go back to the pain points. I feel like it was well hated for this contractor. Don't keep society clean. Contractors aren't good at communicating. They're not good at being responsive. They're typically playing defense all the time because clients are asking, when's this coming? Where's this at? And why not play offense, right? Why not be in front of it? Understood, right? A lot of times clients don't feel that they're understood. They don't feel that we're understanding them. They don't feel valued, or we bring that value, and we're not confident in our responses or in our business. Now, likability is a really important part of this process. There was a study done in the medical field, and 90% of malpractice lawsuits that were in place were because the patients hated the doctor. Because let's be realistic, in the medical field, it's practice, and things go wrong a lot. And not everything that goes wrong turns into a lawsuit. But when they didn't like the doctor, more often than not, it goes into a lawsuit. And I think maybe that's relate that I can tell you that many projects I've finished haven't gotten perfect. So we've been refining this process. And not always am I suing. Why? Because maybe there's likability or collaboration. And the ones that have been really toxic in my career, the ones where there's definitely no likability to the client myself. And so if we can build that likability, and what's really important, especially as your business grows, is understanding that I have my way of communicating with my customers and the brand and how I want to showcase it. But every time I hire someone, do they align with my values, my core beliefs, my core values? And that's why it's really important in the hiring process. And so something that's really important from an organizational side, to understand your SOP and the process is, what is your organizational chart? Do you even have one? Do your employees, what's the opportunity for each employee to improve their role? The status of the company. Do you have job titles? It was funny, I was speaking to, it was a while back in the podcast, and he's like a business coach, he's been doing this a long time. And he was meeting with the contractor, and he's asking the contractor, Like, what are the different roles that each of them have? And he's like, well, everyone has the same title. And he's like, why? So because I don't want them to, because I don't care about titles. This is just honest. And the business goes like, you may not be replaced me. I guarantee they care. And it really matters to them. And they're going to take ownership if they feel like their title represents like their skill set or their authority. And if they don't, subcontractors may, and the suppliers may, and the clients will not see that. Right? If I send my director of construction and he goes in that title, like my clients can respect them and not feel like I have the title of Brad is the owner. Job titles and clear scopes of work and definition closing in two things. So there was a builder that I actually spoke to from Dallas who was out of town this week did some charity stuff right here, but he actually called me earlier this week and he said, Brad, we're kind of struggling with the company culture side. And I'm like a fanatic about company culture. I feel that we have a really neat brand of people that go for us and a lot of collaboration with people, and so I've been like obsessed about this aspect of building this part of the business. And I told him, I said, look, for employees, there's really two things that they need. And let's listen to my podcast, I shouldn't talk about this. But the two things they need is one, they have to believe in the brand of the product. So if they believe in what AT's mission is, if they believe in the product they're putting out there, you know, if they, I've seen this, like, Kohler is a great example. I mean, people at Kohler have been there 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, like they believe in Kohler, they believe in the ethos there and giving back and the community and the organization. Like, it's very unique to be in that environment. And you'll see that with certain brands. It's like, oh, it's very unique. And so they have to believe in that. That's number one. And then number two, they have to go up here, is they have to clearly understand what their role is. If they understand their role and they understand their scope of work and they understand why they're accountable, and understand how they can get bonuses and understand how they can move up the chart, the organizational chart, they'll stay. You won't lose people. It's not, look, pay is awesome, bonus structure is awesome, healthcare is great, 401k, PTO, company outings, that's all I see. But at the core, they have to have those two things. If they have those two things, then now you can build an amazing company, which now will put you in line. And along those lines, I'm often asking, Brad, what's first? Like, do you have to go get like the job so you can afford them, or do you go get the employee? And I've always been big on you invest in your people. And there's risk associated. But I've found in my career, it's always benefited me where I've hired the right person who's super skilled and talented, bring them in, integrate them into the culture, give them a landing zone where they can come and learn the system. And because I have that person now, I go interview them and I'm this job. I mentioned on this incredible $25 million job. The reason I want that is because I hired this employee first. And I knew once I made them face forward and meet the client that they would hire us. And so there's a lot of risk for me in bringing them in at the salary is at, but I want that job because of it. So I'm a big proponent of building the team and then build it, they will come, right?